I've been reading from Nikki Elt's book when he interviewed Maria Simma. The book is called Get Us Out of Here. And this is about the poor souls in purgatory who had visited her over decades. Today is one that I think you should share with many of your friends. It's something that will answer a lot of questions for you. Today we are finding out what the poor souls said to Maria Simma about other religions. Nikki asks, have you been visited by the souls of Jews or Muslims? Yes, and they are happy when they appear to me, understanding things now much better than they did before. It is the case that by being in the Catholic Church, one can do the most for heaven. But those who are brought up differently and thus believe differently and do so conscientiously will also, of course, become holy. I must warn all Christians that there are many saints also to be found outside of our churches. Just one of these Our Lady mentioned recently to one of her visionaries. When the visionary asked her who the holiest person was in the town she was living in at the time, Our Lady answered that it was a Muslim woman. Nikki says, Maria, are there religions that are not good for the souls? She says, there are so many religions, and most certainly there are some that are not good. Today, even witch covens and mind control cults and seminars will call themselves religions, and especially the latter will, without batting an eye, call themselves Christians. But their leaders are only power-hungry mind controllers and are often possessed. It is the Orthodox and the Protestants who are the closest to the Catholics. They believe in God and in the Ten Commandments. Yet the Protestants do not have a devotion for Our Lady, or at least not officially, although I know that many today do pray the rosary. Excluding the ones that clearly serve Satan, it is a question of how much truth the various churches teach. And because God measures how full the cup is and not how empty it is, every group that acknowledges and celebrates a good, saving, and freeing God is also good in his eyes. It is unquestionably the most difficult for Catholics to become holy in the eyes of God. That's because they have access to the greatest amount of truth. Even if the church today is in such drastic shape, we carry the greatest responsibility to bring Jesus to others. And at the same time, we can do the most for them in silence and prayer because we have so much help with which to do that. The most is expected from those who have been given the most. Nikki then asks, are there any people in heaven who during their lives never entered a church of any sort? Of course there are. If a person lives by his clean conscience, trying always to love and attend to his neighbor, he will be with God in heaven. God loves and blesses those who never had access to him while they were here, but who still loved and protected life, the greatest of his gifts. Maria, what should people of other religions who have never learned the prayers that you have mentioned today do to help the poor souls and their families? It's not a question of memorizing recognized prayers of the Catholic Church. It's a matter of the heart. They should actively extend their love and total forgiveness to them and do good things for them. Merely with the Lord's Prayer and the Hail Mary, they will be able to do great things for their relatives in purgatory and thereby also receive help from them in return. Remember that the only prayer that Jesus gave us was the Lord's Prayer. In it is everything that the love of God requests us to do. As simple and short as it is, how many people in the world today do what it asks? With a little time, I suggest that they should also slowly look at the other prayers. These are only sketches, one might say, for what should come out of our hearts for our fellow men and for our deceased friends and relatives. Again, all this is not a question of the mind, but of the heart. Love comes from the heart and not from the mind. Lack of intelligence by itself has never killed anybody, but lack of love kills every minute of the day and night. Life does not become holy, and healings do not happen with our brains, but with our love. Are there as many healings during the masses or services of the other denominations as there are in Roman Catholic masses? Well, that will depend purely on whether those present believe that it is Jesus himself and the consecrated bread, or whether to them it is merely symbolic. If there are healings, even if they only consider communion symbolic, those healings will be imitations and will never last. Satan never stops wanting to confuse and trick us away from our true Jesus. Nikki then asks, then there are other denominations where the ritual has been so watered down that some consider it communion with Jesus at every meal when they break any piece of bread. Are there also healings there, and does it really matter if the ritual remains the same as the Roman Catholic one? It does matter. I feel it should be the Catholic ritual, but I'm equally certain of Jesus' immeasurable love, and therefore I would never dare question whether healings happen in those other communions or not. Still, it is the Catholic Mass, when taken to the heart seriously and in any depth, that is the most balanced and healing for the soul, mind, and body. Maria, have poor souls who during their lives were non-Christian said anything to you about the Pope? Yes, they have. They've told me that they now recognize the Holy Father as the absolute spiritual leader of all humanity. Non-Christians have said this? Yes. Souls of people who were non-Christians while they were here among us on earth have said precisely that to me. What happens to people who join a sect or cult? Well, that depends greatly on why and how they arrive there. If they were born into a family where that was the accepted place to go, then they will be judged very gently. It was not of their own doing, they did not know better, but if a Catholic or Christian of another higher denomination goes there, he will suffer a lot for it. In such a case, the person would have to return to his true belief before he dies in order to be freed of it. He then asks, Maria, I have heard many in my generation in the US, and this also among secular doctors, use the expression recovering Catholic. What do you say to this? Oh, how sad and angry this idea makes me. When this has happened, it is only Satan's doing. When God's divine love is not taught, and the parents, priests, and teachers use only threats and projected guilt, then spiritual wounds can easily happen. Jesus never, but never accuses anybody, for he knows the human condition far better than anybody else does. Only Satan tricks us with threats. Threats have chased many away from the church, and Our Lady says repeatedly that we must pray much for those who have yet to feel the love of God and who have therefore gone elsewhere. Those who have caused this among their young will have much to answer for. When this is the case, the Lord will give the victim of the threats much mercy, because he will know from where and from whom the threats came. I hope that segment was very helpful for you, because I think that's one of the biggest questions we get about people in other religions. None of us knows the heart, and none of us knows the heart of God, but we do know that he seeks justice and mercy combined. That is why purgatory exists in the first place. I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. Thanks for watching this informational Bacon Bit. And as always, remember to live your life sunny side up.